This is the USS Missouri, permanently moored at Pearl Harbor. I actually started drawing battleships when I was about 15. I did a whole lot in pencil. So it was a bit of a flashback, but also it was very unfamiliar territory to be drawing with a pen with no chance to erase. And after all the drawing I've done of architecture in between, I really wasn't sure how to start, but I thought I'd start by trying to establish the base, get that in proportion, or the hull rather, get the hull in proportion, and then superstructure and the guns and everything else on top. There is a lot of curve and height between the prow and the lowest point in the side of the hull we can see. So I had to really work hard to observe carefully and not to draw what I was thinking it was. I had so much trouble placing the barrels of these guns. Normally, the gun barrels of a battleship are really the major thing that we see, but in this view, with the way the sun is, they're actually not the major thing. So I probably agonized a little bit too much. What's more important is that I position the gun that the barrels slotted into in the right spot, because I was going to be both building the superstructure on top of that, but also moving down to the side. So I began to move down to the side. There was this awning that stretched out over the side of the ship, which I decided to spend a fair bit of time placing carefully, as well as observing how far along the hull it actually went to the left. I found that all the proportions were not in the places I expected them to be when I observed carefully, because I'm used to seeing battleships side on or directly front on. So this 3/4 view really played with my mind in terms of what I was expecting it would be, but what it actually was if I observed carefully. And I was having so much trouble positioning things that it was at about this stage of the drawing that I realized I have to employ the same technique I do when I do trees or I do really ornate architecture, and I need to start drawing the effect of the battleship as much as the actual battleship itself. And so I began to concentrate on the areas in shadow and again drawing negative space, rather than actually trying to draw whatever detail was there, which, although I could see the shadows, I couldn't really understand what was happening on the ship to create the shadows. So I really just had to draw the shadows. Drawing negative space is a great way to go in lots of circumstances. So now I'm really just concerned with creating the effect of all this superstructure and equipment, and then stack all the elements of the superstructure on top of each other, keeping them nice and straight, hopefully, and in the right place. It's a bit like drawing a tower. We need to keep all the elements stacked straight and in the right place so they look at the end as if they're all one on top of the other. So I'm trying to work out where to put things. I put this little radar dish and it wasn't quite in the right place. It was a bit low down, so I was trying to work out how I was going to adjust this. And then I remembered my advice to everyone that no one's going to compare it with the reference photo when they look at your drawing. So I decided I was getting too concerned about having put it not quite in the right place. But I put the rest of the superstructure in the right place behind it, well, as best I could at that point. It was pretty easy to get confused, I found. But by this time I was enjoying it. And about now I thought, I think I'm making this superstructure too small for the size of the hull and for the way the prow comes up where it does. And so I began to just put little extra lines in just to widen it slightly. And by the end of it, when I had a look, I think I probably went too far and I've made the superstructure a little bit too, well, the bridge superstructure, a little bit too large for the size of the ship. So I'm really looking at my reference and not so much looking at the detail as trying to look at the silhouette and thinking, have I got the silhouette? Have I got the way the left and right sides slope away and from where they slope away from? Have I got that looking right? Rather than actually trying to copy every little piece, although I am still trying to get a reasonable measure of accuracy. But again, it's the effect of the battleship I'm creating rather than an exactness. This is not going to be a blueprint. I got my finger here because I really was getting confused what was what on my drawing. I'd drawn a few wrong lines, and then it was very hard when I went to put the shadow in to make sure I was putting the shadow under the line I was wanting to put it under. And this really upper bridge part, I have about 4 lines going across where there shouldn't be any. But again, it's the overall effect that we're after. And I put this, when I put that support to the left, which I just put in, before I put it, I thought, oh look, I really should leave this because it may not be in exactly the right place. I shouldn't put it in till I've done the very upper part, the part that I'm starting to draw now. And I wish I had left it because it is just slightly too much to the left. And I think maybe if I'd pulled it in tighter towards the center, the overall effect of the superstructure would have been more how I wanted it to be, more how it is in the reference. Sometimes the order in which we do things is very important because we can make better choices sometimes when more or at least certain parts of our drawing are done. Worked really hard to get the top nice and straight off to the right. Unfortunately, when I do the left, it leans down slightly, although in a moment you might notice me, see it leans down a bit, like the ship's slightly leaning in that direction. But in a moment, I do just adjust those lines slightly, and I think it does make a little bit of a difference. I basically draw over them, starting slightly above the line on the left-hand side and taking my new line slightly below the line on the right-hand side. So I continue to do these sections. Again, I'm just checking now for what parts have I missed now that I've got more of it there that I can see. Again, these are the little lines where I kind of took it out a bit wider that I would like to have not done now, just to have kept the superstructure a little more elegant. So now I'm looking at the waterline and what's happening there and the details on the prow of the ship. I think I've taken the hull out just a little bit too far, a couple of millimeters too far on the right hand side there. And again, it's always good to look at our drawings and work out these things, because next time I draw a battleship, if there's a next time, then the things that I've focused on I didn't judge correctly this time, I'll actually pay particular attention to next time, because we tend to make the same misjudgments when we do the same subject. So it is very helpful to prepare ourselves by having a little critique of our drawing and saying, okay, what do I need to guard against particularly? Now there's a barge here that's doing some sort of maintenance work. This is where it gets a bit tricky when we can't see the details of the barge very precisely. So again, we're trying to draw the effect of what's there, not an exactness, because we actually can't see or understand the exactness. I had thought there were some people there, but when I looked carefully, I couldn't see any. So I'm glad I didn't draw them in to begin with. Add in some wires, the sorts of details. I think this is, yep, doing these long wires down from the aerials. And I think this is where I realized how it's bending down. So I try and make some adjustments there. There you go. Do you think that makes a little bit of a difference? I think it looks a little bit straighter than it looked a moment ago. Mistakes seldom are as big a disaster as we think when we first see them. So now I'm just quickly doing the shore, the elements that attach the boat to the shore, and a little bit of the wharf, and then it will be done. I'm Stephen Travers. If you haven't subscribed, why not? And why not hit notifications so that you'll know when I've posted some more videos. Look, I really enjoyed drawing this battleship, this flashback to my early teenage years. If you'd like to have a go drawing the USS Missouri yourself, I've posted this photo on my YouTube channel community page, so why not print off a copy and have a go? But whatever you're drawing, however you're drawing it, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.